happens if cin fails to place a value in a variable due to incompatible data type? This video is an inspiration from a comment I got on video C++13 titled using cin.ignore. I got a comment saying, what if your input was my number is 3? So I thought, let's take this opportunity to answer that question in a demo. So this program is actually the same one that we wrote in video 13. I've just added a few comments from here and there, but then pretty much really does the same thing. So let's run it in normal situations. So I type in, say, 2. The program doesn't work as expected, but if I say 2, I give it a whole number. In this case, the program works as expected, and it allows me to enter 2 users' names. So what happens when I typed in 2 or say 3 or whatever string we gave it? If cin fails, what it does is it places a 0 in a number, and then its cin error state is set accordingly. So an error state is set in cin, and then what it does is it assigns a 0 value in a number. So what we can actually do is to validate is to actually see out our number. And maybe what I can do is put that in a comment or in a string so that yeah, like this. So this way, if I type in 3, we can validate that indeed a number is giving us the value of 0. So what's happening here? If this is 0, it's like setting our size of array to 0, which isn't really much. So what's happening, we are looping through a counter that starts from 0 and it stops until it's less than 0. So the condition is not really valid to even go into the loop. So this loop is skipped, this loop is skipped, and then we return 0. That's how the program is actually exiting and nothing much is happening. So to confirm this, so why does the program stop? We understand now that it stops because a number is 0 and the loops are not being executed. But let's check this. Let's check the size of the array. So we want the array size, or say user entry, give it the same kind of name. We'll find out the size of this, and I've explained in a previous video, I think I can't remember the number, but I definitely explained the size of function. So please refer that for an explanation of how this works. Sorry, that should have been user entry. That's also user entry, and I'm getting the first element of that, and a semicolon. And let's see out the size of user entry and end that with a line and run it. So if I say 3, a number is 0 and the size of the user entry is also 0. So initially this 0 value that's coming from here came from that cin failing to place a string into the number, so it gave it a 0 value. If we see out, so here an undeclared integer is either a 0 or some intermediate values. It's not always a 0, so let's kind of print that out before we initialize it. So in this case, what I'm actually getting is an undeclared integer is either a 0 or some intermediate value. So I'm getting some sort of intermediate value. And now when I gave it, say, 3, we can see that the fail of cin has failed to put that value into an integer. So what it did is it placed a 0 in a number, and then the cin is actually got some error state, and then the size of the user entry is also 0. That means there's no point in looping because there isn't any elements to loop through in the array, and so the program just terminates with a value of 0 because it reached to this point. So I hope that made sense. And in the case where we've actually given it an integer, so now we can see the difference. again, this is an undeclared integer. You might be getting that to be a 0. That's a good chance you get something like that, but then you might also get some intermediate value like this. Now we have a valid value. So C in this case was successful in putting this value into a number. And now we can just type in, and the program just works as it should. We're looping through the array. So I really hope this made sense, but we can do something. In this case, we don't want to loop through if the array is empty. So in this case, since the array will be of size 0, or let's say if, because it's not always, if the array is of, so I'll just change my commenting, is of size 0, then the loop won't run. So we can say if the array size is actually 0, we could, maybe it's better to put in brackets, not mandatory. We could see out and say it's empty. I mean, maybe you want to have more description going on there, but I'm okay with that for now. Else, do this. Just loop through it. So that way we can, hold on a second, just need to cut the right part and do some proper indentation, which is not really important, but it looks better. And now let's run it. So in this case, if I say 2, we run through the loops. But then if I give it another case where I say 3, then it says it's empty and it doesn't go through the loop. I hope this video has really helped you understand what happens and how C-in works in the case where it fails to put in the right type in the variable that we're trying to put things into. And in the next video, we'll speak about how we can actually check whether or not C-in has failed, and we can, if it does, we can force the user to put in a number. So stay tuned for that.